Here we go. So, I've been a youth worker for years and years. I was a youth worker when I was literally a youth myself. I used to help out when people at a church I was part of were doing youth groups. I used to have opportunities to lead back then. I almost did a youth work traineeship when I was 18, 19, but that fell through. From there, I ended up working in disabilities, working with all kinds of different people, all kinds of different ages. I learned a whole host of skills while I was doing that job. I literally learned to communicate with some of the most difficult people that the organizations I was a part of had. I'd literally, one of my fortes was nonverbal clients and working with people that couldn't speak for themselves. I learned to advocate, but I also learned to understand people on a completely different level. Actually, to go further with that, in my own family, we used to walk around on eggshells and people used to not communicate. So I think that my whole life I've been gearing up to read the subtext and to read what people are really thinking and to understand their angles and to comprehend what it is that might be bothering them, what they might need, and to decipher what they're really saying, to figure out what's really in their heart compared to what's coming out of their mouth. One story that I've got written up on the website, childrenr.com, is about a young man who was apparently one of the most autistic people in Queensland at the time. The government used to lock him away in a room and clean his room every few days, let's go with that. When the company I worked for had him, it would take 3 workers to go out in a public setting without any public around. I'm pretty sure that we needed 4+ workers if there was any member of the public in the area that we went to. One afternoon, his parents wanted to show him a new facility that we were going to move him into. This poor young man didn't want to go there. It ended up escalating to a point where I was locked in the building with him as a fairly new worker. He was coming up to me and asking me if we were okay, telling me that he didn't want to go outside, but the other workers forced him, and he ended up clawing at people's eyes and literally trying to take a bite out of someone's calf. You can read more about that online. What I want to talk about today is my last few years. I had a very good opportunity to take over in a primary school, working with the out of home, the children in care, as an emotional support in the primary school. This was 2018, I think. I got to meet a lot of the students at this school, obviously, and I actually ended up meeting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these children just by being around in the playground, and just friends of friends, and I actually did a lot of work volunteering with the chaplain as well. So I was around the school a lot. That rolled into the same role in the high school, working with the guidance officers, and I was again emotional support for the children in care, and learned a whole lot more there. And working with the older age and working with some of those children again was challenging and difficult and stretching, but I learned a whole different level of the skills that I'd been developing over my whole life, really. Working in the school, I also had the opportunity to do some actual ministry with a Christian organization. So for 1.5 days a week, I was also working doing that, and that included trying to find donors, trying to fundraise, and running a youth program in the afternoons. And I continued doing that while working in the schools, which was a lot. But I thought that it wasn't getting to me, and eventually it led to a burnout. It led to a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And even after that, I didn't want to abandon those children. I kept doing my groups and came up with another banner and another way to do it, and kept supporting those children while working in the school, while serving at a church, doing who knows how many hours every week as well. All of these things led up to me realizing that I needed more money and more opportunities if I was going to have my own family and help to raise a family. My partner actually has a 14-year-old daughter, so realizing there was a 13-year-old at the time on the line as well, I took that incredibly seriously. And I actually moved from the school into residential care, where I was doing overnight shifts and working again with some of the most traumatized children in these organizations straight off the bat. I actually put my hand up to work with one child that hit a whole bunch of boxes that I'd said I wouldn't work with, the kind of children that I just didn't want to spend my time with because I knew it'd be too much. But I tried that, and unfortunately, at the same time, I was having very similar issues at home with our daughter and needing to deal with a lot of very, very serious issues. So I left the residential care work, put the family first, and decided to just work with the people right in front of me. I also, again, was basically at the end of another burnout because I just kept giving and giving and giving and thinking that I was filling up. But really, I was running around, gritting my teeth, doing everything in my own strength, trying as hard as I could to just do the right thing for all these people, and thinking that I had it all sorted, but just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Last year, I realized that if any of this was going to be worth it, if any of this was going to work, if there was a chance that any of this would go anywhere, that I would need to handicap myself and slow down. Unfortunately, the idea that I had for slowing down was to drink and to try and slow down my mind, because it seemed like the self improvement path that I was on was just too fast and too much for the people around me. And I felt like I was just on a completely different trajectory and that there was no way that they could keep up with me. I still maintain that, but I was doing this selfishly, and I was definitely starting to get an attitude and definitely starting to expect more than was fair from these people. Even more so knowing where I was and knowing where they were. I should have been trying to help them up instead of whatever it was that I was doing. So over that year, I've actually come up with this business plan while supporting this young girl, while seeing her be freed from a lot of hurt and pain, from a lot of her programming and her own ideas about life, because we all know what it's like with teenagers, I'm sure. I took away a lot of her distractions. I took away the things that were honestly some of her comforts, but these were the things that were cementing all of the bad behaviors and all of the wrong thinking and bad ideas into her mind. Most teenagers don't realize that most of their entertainment and the things that they think are helping them relax are really programming them and teaching them how and what and even when to think. Same with school. There's so much just propaganda out there that we think is there to entertain us and to add to our lives, and really it's just keeping us in a cage. Unfortunately, a member of the family was also working actively against us. We were trying to parent ourselves, and my partner, having her own trauma, didn't confront a lot of these issues. A lot of the things that I warned about, a lot of the issues that I could see were going to cause massive, massive problems, just got kicked down the road, which obviously made them worse. The problem is that if we're not actively making things better, if we're not making positive choices, making no choice is a negative choice. because all of the things around us, all of the things out there are just so negative and evil at this point that doing nothing isn't going to improve our situation. It's guaranteed to make our situation worse. So, with all of that happening, and the drinking, I got myself more and more and more frustrated. Um, and the whole time, I'm warning of different things that were coming. I'm warning of things that were going to happen. I'm saying exactly what people are going to do. And this led to a point where, on a very emotional day this year, I was supporting our daughter, and this family member took that apparently as an affront and assault on their control and their place in the family. And I actually had been outside of an event comforting this poor girl that was going through some massive trauma at the time. And the person that I'm referring to wanted to know what was happening, but I could just see the rage in their eyes. And on the back of that, they actually lied to us, manipulated us, and tried to steal our daughter away for a did steal our daughter away for a holiday, on completely false pretenses and blaming somebody else who didn't even go on this holiday. I know that sounds cryptic, but bear with me. From there, we decided that the things that had been being ignored for that entire year needed to finally be confronted. My partner went and actually took clothing from our daughter's grandparents' house, where they were basically living like a co-parent. They were stealing the daughter away. They were ignoring the instructions and the things that we asked them to do because of the improvements we'd made to her life. And they were actively working against us. The only time that they would agree with and accept the things that we asked them to do was when it suited them and when it would put us into a bad position with our daughter, where it would cause problems between us at home. If it was something that was kind of neutral, they just wouldn't do what we were asking. They'd watch inappropriate movies, they'd dress her in things we didn't like, they'd cover her in makeup. This 14-year-old looks like a 24-year-old easy. Like, she doesn't look her age, and she speaks in a way that projects a different age as well. So there was already problems that she was facing at school and in public that we were also trying to avoid and trying to help her deal with, while these grandparents were literally just cutting us off at the feet and doing the exact opposite and feeding all of these behaviors. Some of those behaviors started coming out in the home, which was even worse again. And we were doing everything we could to work with her and to help these things through. We also had just moved an hour and a half away from where they were, and I knew that was going to be a problem. With us taking the clothing from the grandparents' house, they decided that that was too much and started ramping up their attacks on us and trying more and more to control this poor little girl's life. They actually, I'd told my partner that they weren't allowed to see her without us there because I didn't trust what was going to happen and what they would say at a time earlier in the year. And one of the times that they did see our daughter, 2 hours later, 2.5 hours later, she was Googling the word emancipation. Now, I was told months before this by the grandmother that when our daughter turned 16, if she came to the grandmother, that she would take her, that she didn't know how they would do it. The second time she said she didn't know how they'd do it and if they could handle it. But she all but told me that they'd take her right now. So as I saw these things ramping up, I literally told my partner that we had to remove the grandparents from the school list so that they couldn't come and take her from the school, because I was sure that she was going to actually come and take our daughter. Now, on the 3rd of March, she abducted our daughter from the school. She picked her up at 9:30 in the morning, didn't tell my partner until nearly 2:15, I think it was. My partner didn't even see the message 1 minute after school finished, when I should have been there to pick her up, I got a message explaining that our daughter was in Redcliffe, that she was with the grandparents, and that basically the guidance officer had apparently let this happen. Now, I'm not sure what's even true because I know that the notes from the guidance officer don't mention this phone call. Sorry, didn't mention this phone call, but when I went into the school on one afternoon, magically the next morning, the notes had this phone call in them. The deputy principal's trying to tell me that he couldn't access these notes, but I've worked in this school and I completely understand what's really happened. And it'll be really interesting to see how this all really ends up playing out when other people are involved. We even went back and met with the principal, but have still not heard anything back. We haven't chased it up either, but a few weeks later, this is 4 or 5 weeks now, we still haven't heard anything from this guidance officer. We haven't heard anything back from the school. The only time that we hear anything is when we literally go in there and try and get answers, and we basically get thrown away, pushed off. The police don't seem like they want to do too much because of the age, which is why they Googled emancipation. Child Protective Services can't do anything without the police, which is great fun. And my partner's been manipulated into literally signing over her parental rights with a JP signed piece of paper saying she can have schooling and medical permission for this child. So that explains one part of the craziness that's been going on through March. But I hope that also help some of you people understand what it is that I'm trying to do here with my business. I've got 2 decades of youth work experience. I've been working with some of the most traumatized people that I've ever met, really, and seeing good results. When I was working in residential care, there were children that wouldn't get outside, and we'd be down at the park on skateboards, on scooters for hours. There'd be boys that barely left their house and felt depressed, and we'd go to the gym over and over and over. I'd see goals that these children had, and I just had a way of have a way of connecting with these people and helping them improve their lives in every area that they're looking for. Um, with my businesses at the moment, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm looking for people that are struggling. I'm looking for people that have behavioral issues with their children. I'm looking for people that just need a helping hand or someone to vent to, even. At the moment, I've got a few spots for people to try this for free, to try it pro bono. I just want to expand those skills a little bit, and I want to actually create a course, and I need some help with that. I need some people to give me their problems so that I can put together the knowledge that I've accumulated and tailor it to specific situations. So if any of that sounds like you, or this story's interested you at all, please reach out and I'll happily see what we can work out. Like I said, I've got a few spots for that pro bono work, but we can also work out whatever you need. And yeah, if that sounds good, see what you think. I'll be live again soon. See you later.